The gentle hum of the air conditioning was the only sound in the quiet suburban home nestled on the edge of Aurora Hills, Colorado. Elena Ward sat at her kitchen island, a half-finished cup of cold brew beside her laptop, and a document titled Strategic Budget Forecast Q3 glowing on the screen. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, yet she hadn't typed a word in the last 10 minutes. It had been less than 30 hours since Harper left for the weekend camping trip with her grandparents, and the silence in the house was beginning to throb like a headache. 6 years as a mother had rewired Elena's entire existence. Noise had become comfort, clutter had become security, and now this calm felt eerie. She sighed and rubbed the bridge of her nose, telling herself to enjoy the rare solitude. That was, after all, the point of letting Harper go, giving herself time to think, work, breathe. But that breath caught sharply the moment her phone buzzed with a familiar chime. The shared family photo album had been updated. Instinctively, she grabbed her phone and opened the notification. The latest image was a selfie of Harper, cheeks rosy, messy curls tumbling beneath a fuzzy pink beanie, grinning with the untamed joy only a 6-year-old could emit. Elena smiled, warmth flooding her chest. Harper was safe. She looked happy. Behind her was a large greenish tent and the silhouette of the Rocky Mountains in the distance, silver-capped under the sun. But then Elena noticed something odd, a small play icon on the bottom corner of the image. It was a live photo. She pressed it. The still image animated briefly, Harper giggling, the camera wobbling slightly, a voice chiming in from off-screen. A low chuckle. A man's chuckle. Deep, distinct, and unfamiliar. Elena's blood turned cold. It wasn't her father-in-law's voice. And it certainly wasn't anyone she recognized. Her pulse began to race. Maybe it was another camper, a passing hiker. But something about the sound, playful, amused, too close to the microphone, made her skin crawl. She rewound the short clip and played it again. The chuckle wasn't just in the background. It was right next to Harper. She felt a prickle at the base of her neck. Trying to shake the unease, she tapped on the image to zoom in. That's when her heart began to hammer. Behind Harper, just over her right shoulder near the tent flap, stood a figure. Not entirely visible, obscured by motion blur and light, but undoubtedly there. A man, tall, shoulders slightly hunched, face turned away just enough to be unrecognizable. The strange thing was, his body wasn't blurred like a moving object should be. It was smudged, as though deliberately edited. Elena's breath caught. She zoomed in further, pinching and squinting. The edges around his face were unnaturally softened, like someone had applied a cheap blur filter over his head. Who the hell was that? She glanced back at the sender info. The photo had been uploaded from her mother-in-law's number, which was odd. June wasn't tech-savvy, and usually Harper sent photos directly through Messenger, not the cloud album. Ryan, she called, standing abruptly, her voice unsteady. Her husband emerged from the upstairs hallway, still in gym clothes, drying sweat from his forehead with a towel. What's wrong? Did your mom say anything about camping with friends? Or meeting people up there? He frowned. No, just the 3 of them. Why? She handed him the phone. Listen. Ryan played the live photo, brows furrowing as the chuckle came through. He rewound, played it again. That's not my dad. Exactly, Elena whispered. Now zoom in on the tent. The left side. He did. When the blurred figure came into view, his face tightened. Who the hell is that? Elena swallowed. I don't know. But that's not just a stranger wandering by. He's too close. A tight silence fell between them. The hum of a fridge, the ticking of the wall clock, the faint sound of a neighbor's lawnmower, all felt suddenly too loud. Elena's phone buzzed again. Another image uploaded. She opened it. Harper, tongue out in typical Goofy fashion. In the background, the same tent, same setting, and the man. This time, he was closer, standing still, facing the camera. The blur on his face was even more prominent, almost aggressively edited. Ryan whispered, "That's not normal. Why would a photo be manipulated like that before being sent? Unless someone didn't want us to recognize him." Elena's hands trembled. She clicked through metadata. Her habit as a digital marketing manager made her fluent in metadata trails, and noticed another anomaly. The GPS pin on the image pointed not to Silver Lake Ridge's main campground, but nearly 2 miles east. Inaccessible by trail. Secluded. Why would her in-laws take a 6-year-old there? Unless they didn't. Unless someone else did. "I need to call them," Elena said, dialing June's number with fingers that barely obeyed. Voicemail. She tried Charles. Voicemail. "Try again," Ryan urged, reaching for his own phone. Elena stared at Harper's face in the photo, beaming, carefree. But in the background, the shadow of danger loomed, literally edited out of focus, like a threat that refused to be seen clearly. The chuckle replayed in her mind. It felt taunting now, calculated. She tried one more call. Still nothing. Her instinct screamed. Harper was not safe. Ryan sat silently in the dim light of his study, fingers gliding across the trackpad with practiced precision as he pulled up the metadata of the second photo Harper had sent. Elena stood behind him, arms folded tightly across her chest, her eyes locked on the screen like it held a secret she both needed and feared to uncover. "Okay," Ryan muttered, voice low and taut. "Here it is. Location data from the image header." He clicked a few more times, opening a map overlay. Elena leaned in. The pin dropped, not at Silver Lake Ridge's main campgrounds where June and Charles had said they'd be, but at a restricted forest region east of the camp, a place called Bellstone Hollow. Ryan blinked, confused. "Wait, that's not a trail. That's a closed zone. Wasn't there some incident here a few years ago?" Elena nodded slowly, her mind rifling through vague headlines and half-remembered reports. "Yeah, a missing persons case. 2 hikers, maybe 3. The area was cordoned off indefinitely. There was talk of unstable land or something worse." Ryan zoomed out, cross-referencing the area with national park alerts. A red warning banner flashed. Bellstone Hollow closed to public ongoing investigation. Elena's stomach dropped. Why would they be there? She whispered. Why would they take Harper anywhere near that place? Ryan's jaw tensed. Unless they didn't. The silence that followed stretched long and oppressive. Elena turned away, pacing, trying to collect her spinning thoughts. This doesn't make sense. June and Charles would never lie to us. They adore Harper. But if they're not answering, and the photos aren't where they said they'd be. She trailed off, staring blankly at the floor. Ryan tapped the screen again. "We need to call the ranger station near Silver Lake. Get someone to check on them." Elena didn't answer. Her gaze had drifted toward the old oak cabinet in the living room. Harper's memory box sat inside, a time capsule filled with crayon drawings, baby socks, birthday cards. Something about that box now called to her like a whisper. As Ryan began dialing the ranger post, she moved toward the cabinet, opened the drawer, and pulled out the box. The scent of dried lavender drifted up, Harper's favorite calming herb, and she lifted the lid slowly, sifting through the keepsakes with careful fingers. Tucked between an old bedtime sketchbook and a faded finger painting was an envelope she didn't recognize. Her breath caught. It wasn't the soft, bubbly handwriting of a child, nor was it June's loopy cursive. This was sharp, precise, familiar. With trembling hands, Elena unfolded the paper inside. Her eyes scanned the lines, her pulse rising with each word. "To my daughter Harper. One day you'll understand why I had to stay away. But I'm always watching, always waiting. You are the only thing I ever did right. D. Her throat constricted. D. Derek. The name hit her like a wave of cold water. Derek Vaughn, her ex-husband. Her abuser. The man who nearly killed her when she was 8 months pregnant with Harper. The man who, according to court records and an official state-issued death certificate, had died in a federal prison 1 year ago. Her legs nearly gave out. She sank to the floor, clutching the letter as if it might disappear. Elena? Ryan's voice drifted in from the other room, edged with concern. She didn't answer. Her eyes were glued to the signature at the bottom of the page, the bold sweep of that D unmistakable. She hadn't seen it in years, but she would know that handwriting anywhere. Ryan stepped into the room, phone in hand, concern etched across his face. The ranger station says no one named June or Charles checked into Silver Lake Ridge this weekend. No record of their RV. Nothing. Elena looked up at him, the letter trembling in her grip. He's alive, she said. Her voice was small, hollow. Derek. He's alive. Ryan frowned. What? He wrote this, she said, thrusting the page toward him. Ryan took it, reading quickly. His face darkened. This has to be old. Maybe it's a fake, someone playing a sick joke. But Elena shook her head. Harper's never met him. She wouldn't even know to hide this unless someone told her to. She stood up, chest tight with adrenaline. This isn't just a coincidence. The voice in the audio, the blurred figure, the wrong location, and now this. Ryan's knuckles whitened around the edge of the letter. You think Derek took them? Elena nodded slowly. Or convinced them to meet him somehow. He always knew how to manipulate people. June was always softer. He could have convinced her to bring Harper without telling us. Ryan exhaled, pacing now. We need to go to the police. Elena hesitated. What do we tell them? That a dead man faked his death and abducted our daughter? That we're basing this on a blurred photo and a voice clip? Ryan turned to her, his expression steel. Then we give them the GPS data, the letter, everything. Elena, if Derek's alive and he has Harper. She closed her eyes, her mind hurtling back 6 years, to the night he pinned her against the kitchen counter, one hand clamped around her throat, the other gripping a bottle of whiskey. The paramedics had arrived just in time. She'd survived. Barely. And Harper had never known the man who helped create her. She had fought so hard to keep it that way. But now it felt like the past had clawed its way out of the grave. I won't let him take her, she whispered. Not after everything. Ryan nodded. Then we don't wait. We leave tonight. Go to Bellstone ourselves. You think that's safe? It's not about safe anymore. It's about Harper. Elena clenched her fists. She looked back at the memory box, now a crime scene in its own right. The image of Harper's smiling face in the photo, so full of innocence, burned into her memory like a ghost. She grabbed the letter, folded it carefully, and tucked it into her coat pocket. If Derek Vaughn had returned from the dead, then she would do the same, resurrect the fighter she'd buried when she thought he was gone for good. And this time, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her daughter. As Ryan packed the car and double-checked the maps, Elena stood motionless at the front window, staring out at the darkening horizon, the paper still warm in her palm. The wind shifted. Somewhere deep in the woods, a storm was stirring. The car hummed steadily down the highway as the Colorado landscape blurred past Elena's window in muted shades of winter brown and ash green. Ryan kept both hands tight on the steering wheel, his knuckles white, his jaw clenched in quiet tension. The letter in Elena's coat pocket burned against her side like a hidden flame, fueling a storm that refused to settle inside her chest. She couldn't shake the sense that she was falling into a past she had long sealed off with locks of therapy, time, and silence. Yet here she was, 6 years later, tracing the steps of her trauma. Because somewhere out there, in the cold, tangled forest, her daughter was in the hands of the man who had once nearly killed her. She stared straight ahead, but her mind was somewhere else, back in her room with beige walls and a softly ticking clock, where a woman named Dr. Colette Mendez had once helped her piece herself back together. As Ryan took the exit ramp toward Boulder, Elena pulled out her phone and scrolled through her old contacts, praying Dr. Mendez hadn't retired or moved out of state. To her surprise and relief, her number was still active. She pressed call, and after 3 rings, a familiar voice answered. "Dr. Mendez," Elena said quickly, "it's Elena Ward. I need to speak with you. It's urgent. It's about Derek." There was a pause, then a calm reply. "Come by the office. I have a break in 20 minutes. Now, as they pulled into the discreet private practice office near the foothills, Elena felt her stomach twist into knots. Ryan stayed in the car, eyes scanning every movement around them, while Elena walked through the glass doors alone, the past pulling her in like gravity. The waiting room smelled exactly as she remembered, lavender and old books. When Dr. Mendez appeared, her face was lined with more years, but her eyes remained steady and warm. They moved into her office in silence, and once seated, Elena didn't hesitate. "I thought he was dead," she said. "I signed a death certificate. The prison called me, sent me his ashes." Dr. Mendez nodded slowly. "That's what the public record says. But I never believed it." Elena's breath caught. "What?" "After your last session, I continued to monitor high-risk inmate transfers. Derek Vaughn's name disappeared from the system the same week you received notice of his death." Dr. Mendez leaned forward, hands clasped gently. "I had a friend in corrections. Off the record, she told me something that chilled me." Elena didn't blink. "Tell me." "Derek wasn't dead. He was transferred, quietly, to a behavior rehabilitation compound in Wyoming. Not prison, something else. Privately run, reserved for inmates with potential." Elena's heart pounded in her ears. "What do you mean potential?" "Low recidivism risk, high manipulation index, and the capacity to become useful citizens under supervision. These facilities are off-grid, experimental. If he showed progress, he would have been released, without public record." "And no one thought I should be told?" Elena's voice cracked, half in disbelief, half in fury. "Not even a restraining order? I'm the mother of his child." Dr. Mendez shook her head slowly. "They buried it. These programs operate under NDAs. Families aren't informed unless violence resumes." Elena stood, her hands trembling. "He's had years to watch us, plan this. Harper has never seen him, but she's always asked about her biological father. What if he used that? Dr. Mendez hesitated, then said he knew how to wait. That was always his strength. "And if he has Harper now, it's not just about paternity. It's about power." Outside, the air felt heavier. Elena climbed back into the car, her skin prickling like static. Ryan looked over. "What did she say?" "He's alive," Elena said. "He never died. They moved him, groomed him for re-entry. And now he's back." Ryan swore under his breath and started the engine. "Then we track him. If the police won't help, we do it ourselves." As they merged back onto the highway, Elena's phone buzzed with a new text message. A name flashed across the screen, Tori Leland. She hadn't heard from Tori since Harper was in kindergarten. They'd once worked together at a publishing house, lost touch after Harper was born, but occasionally liked each other's photos on social media. "Hey," the message read, "I was going through some old files from when I photographed the kids' graduation last spring. Something weird popped up. thought you should see this." Attached was a 30-second video clip. Elena tapped it, her hand already shaking. The footage was simple. Harper, in her tiny cap and gown, climbing up the steps of a makeshift outdoor stage. Children cheered, parents applauded. Tori's camera zoomed in on Harper just as she accepted her certificate. But in the background, seated on the edge of the crowd near a row of trees, was a man. His face was tilted down, hidden under the brim of a navy baseball cap. He wore sunglasses. His posture was relaxed, his hands folded, as if he belonged. Elena paused the video, zoomed in. A jagged scar crossed the man's left forearm. Her breath stopped. She traced that scar with her fingers once, in a life that felt like someone else's. It was Derek. He had been there, watching. Not just recently, but months ago. Ryan leaned over to see the screen. "Son of a bitch," he whispered. "He's been planning this longer than we thought." Elena rewound the footage. Derek never looked directly at the camera, never made a move, but he had sat there long enough to watch Harper receive her diploma, to hear her name announced, to see the way she hugged June and Charles when she stepped off the stage. He'd been so close, and no one noticed. No one felt his shadow slide into their lives. But he had never left. Not really. He was always just behind them, waiting, hidden under brims and behind crowds, watching his daughter grow up from the fringes of a life he'd been banned from. Elena's grip on the phone tightened, her voice thin as paper. "He's been tracking us. In plain sight. This wasn't random. This was planned." Ryan didn't speak. He just pressed harder on the gas as the car sped toward the tree line, the sky ahead bruising with oncoming clouds, as if the storm itself had been waiting too. The atmosphere in the car thickened like fog as they pulled into the driveway of Ryan's childhood home, a two-story colonial with white shutters and a perfectly trimmed lawn that suddenly felt too neat, too artificial in contrast to the storm rising inside them. June and Charles were still not answering any calls, and every moment without word from Harper added a fresh knot to Elena's chest. They had come to check the house for any clue, any trace of intention or contact, something to confirm whether Charles and June had knowingly delivered Harper into Derek's hands or had been deceived themselves. Ryan unlocked the front door with the spare key hidden under the porch planter, his motions stiff and rehearsed. Inside, the house was untouched, a museum of predictable order. Beige walls, a grandfather clock ticking gently, and the scent of Charles's pipe tobacco still faint in the air. Elena moved through the rooms like a specter, eyes scanning framed photos, keys, mail, and corners. Ryan headed straight for the study. The desk was exactly as he remembered it. Papers stacked with geometric precision, a dusty laptop closed but not powered off. When he flipped it open, the machine stirred awake with a groan, and he sat down, fingers moving through folders and email chains with mounting frustration. Most files were innocuous, golf meetups, utility bills, RV club newsletters, but then, in a subfolder titled Archived, Ryan found a document labeled only as for Derek. His hand froze. Clicking it open revealed a plaintext letter, barely a paragraph long, dated 6 months ago. "Derek," it began. "I don't know how you got this number or why you reached out after all this time. But I'm asking, no, I'm begging you to leave Harper out of whatever it is you think you deserve. Elena has her demons, but she's built a stable life. Don't punish the child for the past. If there's any part of you that still remembers what it means to be human, walk away. Let her grow up safe." It was signed, Charles. Ryan reread it twice before speaking. "My father knew," he said, voice brittle. He knew Derek was alive. He knew he'd made contact. Elena stepped into the study, her face already drained of color. "What are you talking about?" Ryan turned the laptop toward her. She read the letter in silence, her expression collapsing inward. "They lied to us," she murmured. "Or, at the very least, they kept this from us." If Charles had any suspicion Derek was reaching out, why wouldn't he tell us? Ryan shut the laptop slowly. Because he thought he could handle it. My dad always believed in negotiation over confrontation. He probably figured if he reasoned with Derek, it would all go away. Elena shook her head. "You don't negotiate with ghosts. You bury them." She grabbed her phone and dialed the precinct, demanding to speak with a detective. After being transferred twice, a weary voice answered. "Detective Lorman." Elena introduced herself and laid everything out, the GPS data, the live photo, the letter, the hidden location, the scar in the video. When she finished, the line fell into a long silence. Then Lorman said, "Ma'am, I understand this is frightening, but as of now, there is no active warrant for Derek Vaughn." He completed his sentence. "There's no legal record of his death because it was never filed through the DOJ. You were informed by a third-party facility, which means," he faked it, Elena snapped, "with the help of a private program." "Maybe," Lorman conceded. "But even if that's true, he hasn't technically done anything illegal. Yet. He has my daughter. You have no evidence of that. She's with her grandparents. They're listed as her legal guardians in the event of your unavailability. I'm her mother. And you've had previous charges of substance abuse, with a suspended custodial agreement filed 5 years ago. Your husband is joint guardianship, but without solid proof that Harper is in immediate danger, our hands are tied." Elena's fingers clenched the phone until her knuckles turned white. "So you're just going to wait until she's missing long enough to be a headline? We'll keep a record of your report. That's the most I can offer right now." The call ended with a polite dismissal that felt like a slap. Elena dropped her phone on the desk, exhaling through her teeth. "They won't help us," she said. "Because Derek played the system too well. Because my past still owns me more than my present." Ryan crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. "Then we do this without them. We follow the GPS trail. We get to Bellstone Hollow ourselves." She nodded against his chest, her voice low. "We leave now." Back at home, they packed quickly, trail maps, flashlights, extra batteries, Ryan's old hunting knife, protein bars, bottles of water, Elena's burner phone from her detox days, the one that didn't log metadata. She held Harper's latest drawing close to her chest before slipping it into her bag. It was a scribbled rainbow with 3 figures. One tall, one medium, one small. The small one wore a crown. "Princess me," it read. The crown shimmered with glitter glue. "I'm coming for you," Elena whispered. They drove through the fading light, the mountains looming in the distance like silent sentinels. Every mile they traveled felt like peeling away another layer of time, stripping down to truths neither of them wanted to revisit. They weren't just heading into the wilderness. They were heading into a place where the past had rewritten itself in blood and bone. As the sign for Bellstone Hollow loomed ahead, partially covered in vines and faded to almost nothing, Ryan pulled over to kill the headlights. They'd finished the rest on foot. The woods were silent, too silent, and somewhere in that silence Harper waited. The forest swallowed the sound of their footsteps as Elena and Ryan moved cautiously through the narrow trail leading toward Bellstone Hollow's restricted zone, the canopy above filtering the late afternoon light into a ghostly green haze. Their boots crunched through brittle pine needles and dry underbrush, while every rustle in the distance made Elena's pulse twitch. They didn't speak, only exchanged nods when the path narrowed or when Ryan gestured toward odd markings, broken branches, disturbed soil, subtle signs that someone else had passed through here recently. GPS was useless now, their phones flickering with zero signal. So Ryan had downloaded offline maps before they left and was navigating based on a combination of topography and memory from old hikes years ago. Elena kept checking her phone out of habit, even though she knew there'd be no updates. No new photos. No messages. Only the last image Harper had sent, the one that now burned itself into her mind. Not because of Harper's smile, though that had once brought her comfort, but because of what Ryan had noticed the second time he enlarged it on his laptop back home. "Look at the log behind her," he had said, squinting at the blackened shape smeared across the bark. At first glance, it looked like a burn mark, maybe ash. But under scrutiny, it became unmistakable. 3 lines, a dot, then 3 more lines. SOS. Not carved, but painted with something that looked like charcoal or soot. "She's trying to send us a message," he'd whispered. And that had been the moment Elena realized Harper wasn't just with Derek. She was aware enough to know she wasn't supposed to be. Now, as they crept deeper into the woods, Elena kept replaying the image in her mind, matching the tree lines, the mossy rocks, anything that could place Harper in this stretch of wilderness. Then they came upon a clearing, a half-rotted fire pit surrounded by rough logs arranged like a circle. The air smelled faintly of smoke, but more than that, of something damp and metallic. Elena paused, scanning the ground. "Here," she murmured. On the nearest log, a dark smudge. Ryan moved beside her, crouching. He wiped the surface gently with his sleeve, and beneath the ash was the same configuration. 3 straight marks, a smudge dot, 3 more. Elena's knees buckled slightly. "She was here," she said. "This is where they stopped." Ryan stood, eyes darting around the perimeter. They either camped here or waited. Elena stepped closer to the log, knelt beside it, and brushed her fingers over the markings. It wasn't precise, it was rushed, smeared in places, but intentional. Harper had done this, knowing someone might find it. Her daughter had left a breadcrumb in the woods, like in the stories Elena used to read her at bedtime. "We're on the right track," Ryan said, "but we need more." Elena reached into her backpack and pulled out Harper's bunny, Mr. Hops, the stuffed toy her daughter had refused to part with since she was 2. They'd found it half buried under blankets in the back seat of Charles's RV when they stopped by the storage lot earlier that day, retrieving it on a hunch that Harper might have hidden something inside. Elena now unzipped the small pouch stitched into its back, the one Harper insisted was for secrets, and slid her fingers inside. Something papery. She pulled it out slowly. It was a note, folded into quarters, written in Harper's uneven block letters with purple marker. Elena opened it with trembling hands. "Mommy, the man said we might fly on a plane soon. He said it's a secret. I miss you. I love you. H." Elena's mouth went dry. Her fingers gripped the paper, as if afraid it might dissolve. "He's planning to take her," she whispered. "Out of state. Maybe out of the country." Ryan peered over her shoulder, his jaw tight. "This is premeditated. He's not just visiting her. He's planning to vanish with her." Elena stood abruptly, pacing the edge of the clearing, eyes scanning the tree line. "We need to think like him. If he wanted to disappear, where would he go? He wouldn't stay out here long. This place is too exposed." This was a waypoint. Ryan nodded. "There's an old ranger station about 3 miles east. It was decommissioned, but it has vehicle access. If he has help, Maya," Elena said bitterly. "She could be driving. She has nothing to lose." Ryan pulled out the compass and checked their bearings. "Let's head that way. If we don't find them, we might at least find signs of where they went." As they adjusted their gear and set off through the thickening woods, the note clutched tightly in Elena's jacket pocket. Her thoughts spiraled into memories she didn't want. Harper's first day of school, her gap-toothed smile, the way she danced in the kitchen barefoot, singing Taylor Swift. If Derek took her now, Harper would become a ghost in his narrative, just like Elena once had. She couldn't allow it. Not again. Not this time. The trees grew denser, the wind sharper, and as the light faded, so did the familiar landmarks. But still they pressed forward, led now not by maps or GPS, but by a child's desperate trail of signals, scratched in ash and hidden in plush, a trail that would lead either to salvation or to a truth neither of them were ready for. The wind howled through the pines as Elena and Ryan approached the edge of a clearing, the last GPS marker on Ryan's offline map flashing faintly on his phone screen. The terrain had shifted, less trail now, more tangled underbrush and uneven rock, as if nature itself had tried to erase this place from memory. But the moment they broke through the trees, the cabin came into view, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't just any cabin. It was the one from the photo Derek had once shown her years ago, during one of his rare moments of nostalgic vulnerability. The chipped green shutters, the sagging porch with a rotted swing still hanging by one chain, the rusted mailbox with a faint V scratched onto the side. This wasn't just a hideout. This was his childhood home. Elena froze, her heart beating painfully in her chest as she stared at the building, untouched by time but haunted by it. Ryan noticed her expression and stepped closer. "You recognize it," he said quietly. "It's his," Elena whispered. "He brought her here, to where it all began." The front door creaked open with little resistance, revealing a stale darkness that smelled of mold, dust, and something faintly acidic. They stepped inside, flashlights slicing through the gloom, illuminating warped floorboards and peeling wallpaper. The living room was eerily preserved, an old floral couch covered in a mildewed sheet, a broken clock on the wall, and in the corner, a rickety bookshelf missing half its contents. But what caught Elena's eye immediately was the far wall. It was covered, wallpapered entirely, with photographs. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Her breath hitched. Every image was of Harper. Some were photos Elena recognized from her own albums, school pictures, birthday parties, family vacations. Others were unfamiliar, clearly taken without their knowledge. Harper at the park, exiting her school, walking hand in hand with June or Charles. But the most disturbing ones weren't just candid. They were edited. Sloppily cut and pasted, Harper's face inserted into photos of Derek at the beach, in front of Christmas trees, standing beside an adult woman who must have been Maya. In some, Harper had been photoshopped to look older, her features distorted, her eyes digitally enhanced to match Derek's. Elena stepped closer, her hands trembling, heart pounding like a war drum. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He's trying to build a life that never happened." Ryan swept his flashlight across the rest of the room, revealing more pictures tacked to furniture, taped to the insides of cabinet doors, even tucked between the cracked window panes. "He's obsessed," Ryan said grimly. "This isn't just stalking. This is delusion." Elena felt bile rise in her throat. Each photo screamed of years of planning, of a mind that hadn't just watched from afar, but tried to recreate reality. She turned away from the wall and headed deeper into the cabin, her steps slow, cautious. She opened a side door and entered what had once been a small office. The air was thicker here, dustier, but something about it felt arranged. A desk stood in the center, oddly clean compared to the rest of the house, with a locked drawer built into its front. Ryan came in behind her and tested the handle. It didn't budge. "Move," Elena said, pulling a bobby pin from her hair and kneeling by the lock. Within seconds, it clicked open with a soft snap. Inside was a stack of neatly organized folders, each labeled in Derek's unmistakable handwriting. Ward Medical, Harper School, custody papers. Elena flipped through them with growing dread until she found a manila envelope with an official-looking seal. She opened it. Inside was a birth certificate, Harper's. But not the one they had. This one listed the father as Derek Vaughn. "No," Elena whispered. Her vision swam. "This is forged. This can't be real." Ryan took it from her, reading carefully. It's got a notary stamp. He used a real ID number. This could pass unless someone knew to question it. Elena pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to breathe. He's trying to prove he's her legal father. He's going to use this. Maybe already has. She sat down heavily on the dusty floor, the walls pressing in, the photos behind her pulsing like memories rewritten by madness. He's building a case, a fabricated life. And this place is the center of it. Ryan rifled through the rest of the drawer and pulled out a USB drive, glancing at Elena. We need to see what's on this. Elena nodded, still gripping the fake birth certificate like it might explode. There's more, she said suddenly. There has to be more. A plan. Travel documents. Something that tells us where he's going. She opened the filing cabinet against the far wall and dug through the drawers, finding receipts, fake IDs, boarding passes, each one with a different alias, but always tied to Derek in some way. And in the final drawer, beneath a false bottom, she found something that made her blood run cold. A children's passport application, with Harper's name on it, and a blank signature line. The thud of boots against old wood startled Elena from her frozen crouch on the floor of the office. Harper's forged passport application still clutched tightly in her hand. Ryan turned sharply, instinctively reaching toward the hunting knife strapped to his belt. But the voice that followed the footsteps wasn't Derek's. It was female, crisp, confident, with a tone as smooth as glass and twice as cold. You always were clever with locks, Elena. The name hit her like a slap, jarring her back into a memory she had buried years ago beneath layers of shame and silence. Elena slowly stood, her eyes narrowing as the woman stepped into the room, framed by the cracked door like a ghost stepping out of a forgotten chapter. Her hair was darker than before, sleek and tied back into a severe bun, and her frame was cloaked in a tailored jacket that clashed with the rustic decay of the cabin. But Elena recognized her instantly. Maya, not Derek's sister. Never had been. Maya Greaves, former psychology major, former manipulator, former flame. Ryan tensed beside her, confused by the tension that flooded the room, but Elena's voice was already shaking with restrained fury. You, she said. You told everyone you were his sister. Maya smirked. It was easier that way. People are so much more forgiving of family reunions than old lovers. Ryan blinked. Wait, you know her? Elena's throat constricted. College. We dated. Briefly. She became possessive. Obsessive. She followed me across campus. Showed up at my dorm. I reported her. Maya sighed. You reported me because I knew too much. I knew what kind of person you were becoming. The pills. The lies. The manipulations. You made up stories, Elena snapped. You said I was violent. That I was unstable. You twisted everything. Derek believed me, Maya said softly, stepping further into the room, eyes flitting across the documents on the desk. He saw you for what you were. That's why we spent the last 5 years rebuilding what you ruined. Elena's chest tightened as the puzzle locked into place. You helped him fake his death. Maya nodded. I filed the documents, booked the transport, arranged the psychiatric profile that got him transferred instead of buried. Ryan stepped forward. Where's Harper? Maya glanced at him, uninterested. She's safe. Happier than she's ever been. She doesn't even ask for you anymore. Elena's voice cracked. What do you want? What you took from both of us, Maya said. You stole Derek's future, his family, his child. You destroyed mine. Now we're simply correcting that. She pulled a slim folder from her bag and tossed it on the desk. This is a petition for guardianship. We filed it 3 weeks ago in Arkansas under your maiden name, forged with just enough of your old signatures to pass. Elena stared at it, the weight of it pressing against her ribs. You forged custody papers. Maya tilted her head. Call it rebalancing. Ryan stepped between them, his voice low and edged with threat. That's kidnapping, fraud, identity theft. Maya smiled faintly. That's assuming anyone believes you. The woman with a past full of rehab stints, a suspended license, and sealed records that won't stay sealed forever. Elena clenched her fists. You don't get to rewrite my daughter's life because you feel scorned. Oh, I don't feel scorned, Maya said calmly. I feel justified. She walked over to the photo-covered wall and traced one of the pasted images with her fingertip. She looks like him, you know. The eyes, the mouth. When she smiles, it's like watching him win. Elena stepped forward, tears burning behind her eyes. She is not your symbol. She is not your revenge. Maya turned back to her, her face suddenly cold. She's the daughter of a man you tried to erase, and a woman you tried to forget. Her words hung in the air like smoke, toxic and clinging. Ryan moved fast. Where is she now? He demanded. Where's Derek? Maya didn't flinch. You're too late. They're already on the move. The plane leaves in a few hours. New passports. New names. Elena lunged forward, grabbing Maya by the jacket, shoving her back against the wall. You're not taking her, she hissed. Maya didn't resist, only looked her in the eye with quiet pity. We already have. The tension from the cabin still clung to Elena's skin as tightly as the sweat that had soaked into the fabric of her collar. The moment Maya uttered those final words, we already have, the only thing Elena could focus on was how to get her daughter back without letting rage cloud her judgment. Ryan wanted to go straight to the authorities again, but Elena knew it was pointless. They needed proof, evidence that Derek and Maya were not only manipulating legal systems, but actively endangering Harper's well-being. So when Maya offered a meeting, a final negotiation, as she called it, Elena agreed, but not without conditions of her own. She said yes to the meeting, to the custody discussion, and pretended to be cooperative, signing off on Maya's terms while secretly planning her counterattack. Back in the safety of their car, Elena pulled out a small device from the emergency kit Ryan had stashed under the seat, a miniature camera embedded inside a sleek black digital watch, originally designed for trail surveillance, but easily repurposed. She secured it around her wrist, made sure it was recording, and activated a Bluetooth connection that streamed to Ryan's backup tablet, hidden in the glove compartment. You sure about this? Ryan asked as he double-checked the angle. This could go south fast. Elena nodded grimly. I need to see her. I need proof of how far they've gone. Ryan handed her a small transmitter, no larger than a car key. If things go sideways, press this twice. I'll be less than a block away. The drive to the address Maya sent, a modern villa nestled against the edge of a gated ridge estate, was silent except for the soft hum of tires on asphalt. As Elena stepped out of the vehicle and approached the front gate, a camera clicked, and the lock disengaged with a sharp buzz. Maya greeted her with a kind of smug warmth that made Elena want to claw the expression from her face. We're all ready for you, Maya said, ushering her into the foyer of a space that reeked of polished steel, glass, and artificial civility. The house was expansive and sterile, designed more for presentation than comfort, with marble floors, sunken lounges, and staged artwork along the walls. Derek waited in a back room, a home office converted into something between a legal chamber and a nursery. He stood behind a glass desk, dressed in a charcoal button-down, his beard neatly trimmed, a far cry from the unkempt figure Elena remembered from court photos. Harper sat on a plush chair nearby, hugging Mr. Hops tightly, her face pale but composed in that eerie way children wear fear like a second skin. Derek opened his arms. Harper, he said, voice too rehearsed, come here and say hi to your daddy." Harper hesitated, looked at Elena, then reluctantly stood. "Hi," she said softly. "Daddy." Elena's breath hitched, but she didn't show it. Instead, she smiled weakly and took a seat as Derek gestured. "We're here to formalize things," he said. "One signature, and we're done. No more hiding, no more courtrooms. Just a family reunited." Maya handed Elena a pen and a thick folder labeled Custody Transition Agreement. Elena didn't touch it. Instead, she looked at Harper, her voice calm. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Harper nodded slowly. "They said we're going on a plane, to a place where it's always warm, and we can swim every day." Elena's stomach clenched. Derek smirked. "See? She's adapting beautifully." Elena looked him in the eye. "You've manipulated her. You forged her birth certificate. You created a false identity. That's not adaptation. That's abduction." Derek's smile vanished. "Don't test me, Elena. I've gone through hell to get here. You think I won't finish what I started?" He walked to a side cabinet and opened a drawer, pulling out a syringe, its contents cloudy and pale yellow. He held it up between two fingers, the needle glinting under the overhead lights. "You sign the agreement," he said, "or I put this in you. Right here. Right now." Elena stiffened, her pulse hammering. "What is that?" "A blend," he said smoothly. "Sedative and lithium. Just enough to make you cooperative. Then we explain to the courts that you relapsed, that you broke into our home, that we had to restrain you for your own safety." Maya stood behind him, arms folded, watching Harper without concern. "She won't remember this part," Maya said. "We'll keep it vague. Mommy got sick again. Mommy's resting." Elena's hands curled into fists on her lap, but her face remained composed. The camera in her watch recorded every word, every gesture. "You think this will hold in court?" she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "With Harper's testimony? With what you're about to do?" Derek tilted his head. "You're not in a court right now. You're in my home. And in here I don't need a jury." He approached, syringe in hand, the rubber plunger trembling slightly between his fingers. "You gave her away the moment you chose to erase me. I'm just reclaiming what's mine." Elena shifted, subtly angling her wrist toward his face. "You never had her," she said softly. "You had control. And that's not the same thing." He paused, something flickering in his eyes, something ancient and angry and wounded. "You think I won't do this?" Elena whispered, "I think you already did." The syringe hovered inches from Elena's arm, Derek's breath shallow and erratic, his hand trembling not from hesitation, but from the weight of his delusions, finally collapsing into this single act of violence. Behind him, Maya stood like a shadow, still and complicit, eyes unblinking as if already seeing how this would unfold, how the narrative would be twisted in their favor yet again. Elena's heart thundered beneath her ribs, but she didn't flinch, didn't pull away, because flinching meant fear, and fear fed him. Instead, she met his eyes, gaze sharp and defiant, the tiny camera in her watch still recording, its lens catching the gleam of sweat on his brow and the manic flicker in his pupils. "You won't do it," she whispered, her voice low and even, "because the second you do, there's no going back." Derek's jaw clenched, his other hand reaching out to grip her shoulder, fingers digging painfully into her flesh. "You made this choice," he hissed. "You and your damn lies. Your stories. Your erasure." Elena didn't move, but her eyes flicked just once toward Harper, who still stood by the chair in the corner. Mr. Hops clutched her chest. Harper's wide eyes darted between her mother and the man who claimed to be her father, and though her lips didn't part, her small hand slowly shifted toward the phone, hidden behind the bunny's back. It was the emergency phone Maya had carelessly handed her earlier, thinking it was locked, thinking it was a toy to keep her occupied. But Harper remembered her mother's voice, her training. If anything bad ever happens, Elena had told her, and I'm not with you if you're scared, find a phone. Call 911. Just say your name, where you are, and that you need help. That's enough. Harper's fingers moved slowly, carefully. She pressed and held the side button, just like Mommy taught her. Siri chirped to life in a whisper. Emergency SOS, it said softly. Calling 911. As the call connected, Harper whispered into the mic, barely audible. My name is Harper Ward. I'm in a big, white house. I think my mommy's hurt. Please come. Then she pressed mute, turned off the screen, and slipped behind the half-open door of a nearby utility room. She curled into the corner, knees pulled tight, clutching Mr. Hops like a shield. Inside the main room, Derek hadn't noticed the call. His focus was solely on Elena, on punishing her for the imagined sins of a past she had outgrown, but he never could. He raised the syringe again, hand steadier now, lips moving soundlessly as if reciting a final prayer. Elena clenched her jaw, searching for anything, any moment, any noise that could stall him. Then, just as his hand lunged, Harper's voice rang out from behind the door. Daddy. The word cracked the room like thunder. Derek froze, arms suspended midair, the syringe hovering. He turned toward the voice, surprised, not by the sound itself, but by the word. Daddy, Harper said again, louder this time, her voice quivering. Please stop. He stared at the door, eyes wide, lips parting slightly. Harper, he said, the name like ash on his tongue. You called me. Don't hurt Mommy, she said, stepping out slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. You said you loved me. Please don't hurt her. Derek lowered the syringe, something crumbling behind his eyes. And then it happened. The front door burst open with a deafening crack, and Ryan charged through, followed by 2 uniformed officers with weapons drawn and voices booming commands. Police. Drop the syringe. Hands where we can see them. Derek turned, startled, the shock of Harper's plea still disorienting him. And as the syringe slipped from his fingers, he took one instinctive step toward Harper, not in rage, not in threat, but in something close to desperation. I just wanted her to know me, he mumbled, but it was too late. Ryan tackled him mid-sentence, pinning him to the floor as the officers swarmed. Maya didn't run. She simply sank onto the couch as if her body had given up, her eyes vacant. Elena rushed to Harper, scooping her into her arms and holding her so tight the child squealed, not from fear but relief. You were so brave, Elena whispered into her daughter's hair. So brave. Harper buried her face in her mother's neck, and for the first time in hours, Elena let the tears fall freely. One of the officers retrieved the syringe, bagging it carefully. Another approached Elena. We got the call from a child. Traced it using location triangulation. She did everything right. Elena nodded, unable to speak. Ryan stood, bruised but steady, glaring at Derek, who now lay cuffed and muttering on the floor. She saved all of us, Ryan said, his voice shaking. She saved her mother's life. The room filled with static and commands and radio chatter as more police entered. But amid the chaos, Elena held Harper tighter and tighter, as if anchoring her to this moment, this second of safety reclaimed from the edge of something unspeakable. The sterile beeping of a heart monitor was the first sound Elena registered, followed by the faint antiseptic scent of alcohol and plastic that clung to every inch of the hospital room. Her eyelids felt swollen, her mouth dry, and when she shifted, pain radiated across her ribs like cracking glass. But none of it mattered the moment her vision adjusted, and she saw Harper curled up beside her on the hospital bed, her small body rising and falling with each steady breath, Mr. Hops tucked securely in her arms like a shield that had somehow carried them both through hell and back. Elena's face was bruised, her lips split, and her left eye darkened with a sickly hue, but none of it could wipe away the tired, raw smile that broke across her features as she reached down to brush a strand of hair from Harper's forehead. For a moment, everything was quiet, no sirens, no shouting, no Derek. Just breath, warmth, and the almost unbearable relief of having her daughter safe in her arms again. When Ryan stepped into the room, his expression shifted instantly from concern to soft wonder at the sight of them together. He pulled a chair close, took Elena's hand, and whispered, "She didn't leave your side. Not even once." Elena squeezed his fingers, blinking back tears. "She saved me," she said hoarsely. "She saved us all." The hours that followed passed in a blur, detectives coming in and out, statements taken, nurses adjusting IVs, and finally a woman from social services sitting quietly at the foot of the bed with a clipboard in hand and a gentle, practiced smile. "We've reviewed the footage from the camera in your watch," the woman said, "as well as the call your daughter made to emergency services. There's no question about who initiated the violence. However, Elena already knew what was coming. You had sealed records," the woman continued delicately, "and those were reopened as part of the investigation. The charges from 6 years ago, embezzlement, controlled substance abuse, they were documented. It complicates things." Elena nodded slowly. "I understand. There will be a hearing," the woman said, glancing at Harper, who still slept peacefully, clutching Mr. Hops. "A judge will determine whether full custody can be maintained or if supervised guardianship is more appropriate for now." Elena didn't argue. She had lived with the shadow of her past for too long to pretend it wouldn't eventually catch up. But this time, she wasn't going to hide. The day of the hearing arrived under an overcast sky, and as Elena entered the courthouse, flanked by her attorney and Ryan, she carried no illusions of innocence, only truth, and the hope that it would be enough. Derek and Maya were not present in the courtroom, having already been remanded without bail on charges of felony child abduction, possession of illegal narcotics, identity fraud, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Their arraignment would come later. Today, it was Elena's turn to face the system again. When Harper was called to the stand, the courtroom held its breath. Dressed in a soft yellow dress and holding Mr. Hops tightly, she climbed onto the seat and looked around with wide eyes before settling them on the judge. With gentle prompts, she explained what she had done, how she had called 911, how the scary man said he was her real daddy but yelled a lot and made her mommy cry. She told them how her mommy always told the truth, even when it hurt, and how she had been learning not to be scared of the dark, because brave girls tell the truth too. Then the judge played the footage from the camera watch. The image flickered onto the screen, cold and grainy, but unmistakable. Derek's face, twisted in anger. The syringe. The threats. Elena's calm resistance. And Harper's voice, off camera, stopping it all. When it ended, the room remained silent, even the prosecution unable to refute what they had seen. The judge cleared his throat, looked at Elena, and then at Harper. This court acknowledges that while the respondent, Elena Ward, has a complicated legal history, her actions in this case demonstrated clarity of judgment, moral courage, and maternal instinct in the face of extreme danger. In light of the circumstances and the testimonial evidence provided, custody will remain with Ms. Ward under monitored supervision for a period of 6 months, pending review. Counseling and ongoing drug testing will be required. Mr. Ward will remain joint guardian. Elena exhaled, a sob escaping her lips not from fear, but from the overwhelming tide of relief. Ryan pulled her close, whispering, "You did it. We did it." Outside, as the sky broke open and sunlight began to filter through the clouds, Harper reached up to take her mother's hand and asked quietly, "Are we safe now?" Elena knelt down, kissed her forehead, and said, "We're safer than we've ever been." They walked away from a courthouse together, not as victims, not even as survivors, but as a family that had finally reclaimed itself from the shadows. The past would never fully let go, but neither would they. Because love, honest, painful, determined love, had finally won. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next twist-filled mystery. What part hit you the hardest? Do you think justice was truly served in the end? And hey, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your thoughts and location in the comments. I read every one,